Hello, everyone. Welcome to the How to Start a Charter School series. Um, Today's webinar deals with writing and submitting your charter application. I'm Lynn Norman Tech, Executive Director of the Florida Charter School Alliance. And with me today, we have Adriana Lima. Adri is Marketing Director for Academica. Academica is one of the longest running charter school support organizations. And they operate charter schools in Florida, Nevada, Texas, and in Washington, D.C. So today's webinar will give you an overview of the application process, from forming a founding governing board to the submission of your application. Now, this is not a step-by-step instruction webinar, but it will give you an overview of what you need to do and provide you with a checklist as well as very valuable resources. Now, before I turn it over to Adri, let's talk about what is a charter school. If you're watching this webinar, you've done a little research, and so you know that charter schools are public schools. It's important to remember that charter schools are guided by their governing board and operate under a strict contract with their sponsor. And your sponsor will probably be the school district. I say probably because universities can also approve a charter school, but in this case, you're probably looking at working with your district. And it's also important to be very familiar with state statute. It's on the screen. Be familiar with the language in there. That language dictates what you do and how you're assessed, and also guides your authorizer. Charter schools may be started by a group of parents, community leaders, teachers. There's been cases of municipalities or community colleges starting a charter school, and all must follow the rules that we will talk about today. Charter schools in Florida offer a variety of specialized curriculums. We've been able to target all the students in the state, from the at-risk to ESE kids, dropout preventions, and I believe that's why our movement in the state has been so successful. Now, a lot of times you will read that charter schools are free from regulations, and although charter schools may or are free to develop their own educational plan, they do have to follow certain constraints. And here are a list of a few of them. And again, follow state statute and what that says when you're creating your application. One thing that is very important to remember is that charter schools must comply with public records and public meetings with the Florida Sunshine Law. You also have to maintain financial records in accordance with law, yearly financial audits, and you have to participate in the Florida Education Accountability Program. It used to be the FCAT, and now it's the FSC. And that's important to remember when you're creating your application. There are also lots of regulatory issues that charter schools must comply with. I mentioned Florida statute, but there's also State Board of Education rules. There are federal regulations when it comes to Title I and children with disabilities. And then there's also the contract that you have with your sponsor, and that will also dictate what you can and cannot do. We encourage you to go to our website for more information about that, or visit the Department of Education, and they've got a thorough charter school do's and don'ts section. So when you're thinking about your charter school, think about ways that you would help students succeed and the children that you would want to serve. And that's your first step. Now I'm going to turn it over to Adri, and she can take you through the application process.
In order to move forward with your school's application, you should first brainstorm ideas for the vision and mission of your school. The vision will guide you as you build your educational program. You should take a close look at Part 1, Section 1 of the Model Florida Application, Mission, Guiding Principles, and Purpose. Your mission should be a statement of the fundamental purpose of the school, describing why it exists. The vision should outline how the school will operate and what you wish to achieve long term. Together, these two statements will provide you with the foundation for the entire program and the application. You may revisit your mission and vision as you go through the application process, but use this as a starting point. Developing a successful charter school is a complex process which will demand the efforts of a number of experts. The founding group may need to work with specialists with expertise in a number of areas, including, but not limited to, education law, including federal, state, and local laws and policies, curriculum and instruction, assessment of student achievement, special education, systems technology, educational leadership, human resources, public school finance, accounting, management, governance, grant writing, real estate, civil engineering and architecture, community organizing, and public relations and marketing. The founding board of your school will have to defend your application at the time of the interview with the sponsor. The sponsor will review all sections of the application and ask any questions or ask for clarification when needed. Sponsors hold new application trainings each year, typically around April or May. It's important to be familiar with a sponsor's timeline for trainings as they change each year. This training will inform you of any specific items the district or sponsor requires in addition to the requirements of the Florida Model Application. A letter of intent to the sponsor may be submitted by June 1st. For some districts, this may be mandatory, so it's again important to be familiar with the sponsor's timeline. Per statute, an applicant may submit a draft application by May 1st of the year of the application in order to receive feedback by June 1st. There is an application fee of $500 for a draft application. A final application is due on August 1st of each year. The sponsor has 60 days to review and rule on the approval or denial of the application. In some cases, the sponsor may ask an applicant to sign a waiver allowing for an extension of the review period. It is up to the applicant to decide whether or not they grant the extension. District staff will evaluate the application and use the information gathered through an applicant interview to determine whether or not to approve the application. The founding board will attend the applicant interview and will be asked questions on any sections requiring clarification. Your board should be very familiar with all aspects of the application and operations of the school, including finance, curriculum, special education, and others. Subsequently, the applicant will receive notice of the staff's recommendation for approval or denial. Aside from the requirements of the actual application, FLDOE and the sponsor may require additional appendices or addenda. The Florida Model Application may be found on the FLDOE website, along with the evaluation form, which will serve as a guide as to what each response should, at a minimum, address. The members of ARC, or Applicant Review Committee, will assess whether or not the application meets the standards, and they'll make recommendations for improvement where necessary. The evaluation form will tell the applicant what is required in each section. It's important to read the sponsors and the FLD application instructions in their entirety prior to beginning. Formatting and page number rules will apply. The instructions will tell you how your application should be organized and in what order to submit all required documents. If the school board denies your application, you will receive the reasons in writing. If you are denied, you may either withdraw your application prior to the school board meeting where the official vote will take place and reapply the following year incorporating the sponsor's recommendations. If you feel that your application has merit, you may take the denial and appeal the decision to the State Board of Education. If your application is approved, the next step would be the charter contract. At the time of contract, you must have a secured a facility. At this time, you will need legal representation to assist you through the contract review and negotiation. This process would typically occur after October of the calendar year you submitted the application. Contract review and negotiation time varies by district.
Thank you, Adri. And Adri mentioned the appeal process in the state of Florida. There's information on the Florida Alliance website about that process, and there will also be a webinar taking you through that. So once your application is approved, you prepare to open your school. Adri, do you want to talk to us about the difference between your founding board member and your operating board?
Sure. Oftentimes, your founding board will be an initial group of individuals who has kind of the vision and mission to start a school. In the application, you are allowed to describe how your founding board will transition into your official school's governing board. Not all members of the founding board need to be on the school's final governing board, but typically a lot of those founding members do end up being on the governing board. On your governing board, which will operate the school, you will want to make sure that you do have people who are familiar in the areas discussed earlier, including law, finance, and specifically education.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So once you're preparing to open, definitely have a checklist of things that have to happen before that August opening date. Adri mentioned the securing of a facility. You need to secure your funding, arrange for governing board training, and that is key. And you'll find more information on the DOE website and also the Alliance website about that. And then you need to develop formal operating agreements with all your vendors. Of course, marketing has a big role, and again, your charter school contract with your district will include parameters about marketing, and then and the hiring. Your teachers have to be state certified. They must be fingerprinted through the district. So the countdown to the first day, it's an action plan with a timeline, just like you planned to create this application. You have to plan for that first day of school. And then once you open your charter school, you have to plan for an ongoing cycle of improvements. That's what makes charter schools great. You never just open your doors and serve the kids as you stated in your application. You're constantly thinking of ways to implement better education practices to move the students along. You're doing assessments and you're analyzing your data. You implement improvement plans, and you've got to renew that contract with the district. In many cases, you'll get a 1-year contract. You may get a 5-year contract, but that doesn't mean those 5 years you can just operate without doing self-assessments or research or tweaking your program. You have to absolutely move those kids forward. So keep that in mind. So funding for a charter school, there is startup funding, there's per pupil funding, federal funding, grants, and of course fundraising. There's more information about that on our website, and you can refer to the Department of Ed in the state for more information about that. Again, your resources, we keep on mentioning the DOE because their website has so much information. They've got FAQs and forms that charter schools need. You don't need to reinvent forms. Please refer to the Department of Ed. The School Choice Office has developed a very thorough and comprehensive website that can help you through this process. Refer to the Alliance website. And of course, your district has valuable information that you can use as well. We want to thank you for being part of today's webinar and on starting a charter school and writing an application. If you have questions that weren't addressed in this webinar, please submit them to me or give us a call at the Alliance, and we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. Thank you, Adri.